Constitution Amendment Bill 2020, popularly referred to as the BBI bill, proposed a sweeping 74 changes, but the Court of Appeal struck most of them down for violating the Constitution's basic structure and for failing to adhere to procedure. Now, the verdict not only clouded the 2022 political formations, but it also raised a new legal debate. What will it take to ever change the 2010 Constitution? With all due respect, tonight, we dig and delve for the meaning, and we have the perfect cast for this. From New York, Professor Makau Mutua is joining us with his crystal ball. Kadwe Alliance party leader, Dr. Ekuru Aukot, also joins us. And Professor Bigaya Kecha, public law scholar, here with us. Gentlemen, welcome to the program. Let's start where we should. Let's start with you, Professor Bigaya. The last time I spoke to you about this, and last time on this program, you were very confident about this matter being overturned by the Court of Appeal. It hasn't happened. What is your reaction to the Court of Appeal judgment?
I wasn't so much as confident as optimistic that there would be some shift in the Court of Appeal. But anyhow, I think for me, and so far I've read some 140 pages of the Musinga judgment. There are two fundamental issues that I think the courts are getting wrong. And I know it's very unpopular to oppose the verdict at this point in time, given the unpopularity of the BBI. But I'd like Kenyans to look beyond BBI, to look beyond the politics for a moment, because of the implications of the judgment of the Court of Appeal for the amendment of the Constitution, for two reasons. Obviously, the idea that there's a basic structure, that some fundamental values of our Constitution need to be protected,
yes,
is a good one.
Right.
However, what we will disagree on, and what I disagree with the Court of Appeal, is what then it takes for a court to say that an amendment is a dismemberment. Mm-hmm. And for the example I'd like to give relates to the failure of the Court of Appeal to draw a distinction between the fundamental principles of a constitution and its institutional design, number one. Number two, it has made it, from my perspective, in terms of insisting on the four-step process of amending a constitution, practically extremely difficult for Kenyans to do that. And I want to come back to that.
Yes, I want to come to that. But yes, let me get all the way to New York. Professor Makau, what is your reaction to this, the Court of Appeal judgment? What are the legal questions, the legal problems that you have first? And one legal problem you have and one political problem you have?
Well, first of all, let me say, James, that it's good being with you and with my colleagues, Professor Ketch and Dr. Aukot. This past week was a tremendous week for Kenya in terms of constitutional growth. I mean, whatever side of the political aisle you are on, you should be proud that the political process and the legal process are both working, trying to check each other. So having said that, let me just say that the one thing that was clear from the judgment is that the court said that you can amend the Constitution. The court never said you cannot amend the Constitution, but the court said that if you want to amend the Constitution, it's going to be very difficult for you to do so. And the reason for that is because we know where we are coming from. You remember, James, you don't remember, you're not born yet, but in the early 60s, in the First Republic, Mr. Jomo Kenyatta, amended the Constitution willy-nilly. By the late 60s, the liberal Constitution had been mutilated beyond repair. We could not recognize it. Mr. Moi carried on the same tradition. What the Court of Appeal said, and what the High Court did say, and the Court of Appeal affirmed, was that we could not go back there where politicians could willy-nilly amend the Constitution. It never stopped them from doing it, but it simply said that it's like a football game. When you get into a football game, there are rules. You cannot carry the ball. You cannot touch it unless you're the goalkeeper. So that is what happened. Politically, from a political point of view, What happened was that I understood the BBI process to be an attempt by Mr. Kenyatta and Mr. Odinga to engineer a new politics of Kenya with a new ethnic consensus, trying to bring together individuals and communities that had been at loggerheads. That was the goal, from my understanding of it. The court obviously has said that the way that goal was carried out was not correct, which means that those two gentlemen have now been set back. But I should say, James, before I seek ground here, that people want to look at the BBI judgment as a loss either for Mr. Odinga or a win for Mr. William Ruto. And I would like to just say something about that. I think that both of them actually lost, because both of them stood to benefit from one aspect of the BBI process, and that was the expansion of the executive to be able to form a larger ethnic alliance to fight the elections. So I think there was a loss on both sides.
Great. I want to go to Dr. Kurokot, and specifically, you have tried before the other person to sort of change, come up with, a referendum of sort and change the constitution. You also hit a roadblock. But I want to get your reaction first with what is the legal problem that you see, or the legal opportunity with the Court of Appeal decision, and the political problem or opportunity that you see?
Okay, so for me, two things. One, the process of amending the Constitution of Kenya is properly defined in Articles 255, 256, and 257. So if you must really change the Constitution of Kenya, then you must invoke either of those provisions in the Constitution. This is not just a political process. It is also a legal process. And I think the problem with BBI is that when they started the proposal to amend the Constitution, it wasn't very clear right from the outset. It was about, let's find out what ails this country. And I remember in 2018, we wrote to Joseph Kenywa, the head of public service, and we told him that, listen, what ails Kenya is not about seeking to amend the Constitution as proposed by BBI, but it's about enforcing or implementing the proposals that have been there right from, say, Truth, Justice, and Reconciliation Commission. If it's about election malpractices, you have the Kriegler report. If it's about matters land, there's the Ndungu report. If it's about post-election violence, there is the Waki report, then there's the Akiumi report, and all those things. So I think the problem with BBI, I'm not even sure whether there was any attempt to follow the law or the Constitution right from the outset. It was more a political process started by two individuals calling themselves brothers, So you can imagine if all the 47 million of us called the President of the Republic of Kenya brothers, then how many constitutional amendment proposals would we have as a country? So I'm not even sure that the debate should be about the legality or even the political process. It's, they just didn't follow the process from the beginning.
All right, they just did not follow the process from the beginning. Professor Migakech, Professor Makau Mutua, and Dr. Kurokot, if tonight Kenyans don't understand what has happened with the BBI and this Court of Appeal, then no one stands a chance. I want to take a short break, because when I come back, we're going to discuss this central question. Was the BBI a repeal or an amendment? Because that is really at the heart of this issue, before we go too far.
Are you on Nyota? Pata channel sita zaidi when you pay for more than 1 month on Nyota Bouquet. Enjoy more entertainment on Nyota.
Did you know at Ruiru Mabati Factory, we offer free delivery within the same day? Did you know at Ruiru Mabati Factory, you can open an account and lipa pole pole at your convenience? Did you know at Ruiru Mabati Factory, you can get customized sizes according to your roof plan to avoid wastage? Call us now on 0111 050 700. Ruiru Mabati Factory, mali safi kwa bei poa.
Wonderful, your baby's quite active.
After I discovered Molfix, I rediscovered my baby. She's jumping and running around.
Well, we call that the Molfix Comfort.
Thanks to its elastic side bands, Molfix provides freedom of movement for your baby.
All babies deserve a high-quality diaper. You should also try Molfix.
Think critically and approach questions, challenges, and setbacks with a positive and proactive attitude. You'll gain a reputation as someone who wants to make an impact and get things done.
Our graduates and our future leaders make some of the most sought-after professionals in their respective industries. We admit both self- and government-sponsored students for our master's, degree, diploma, and certificate programs that are accredited by the Commission for University Education. The moment you have been waiting for is here. Zetech University. Invent your future.
The UHC journey is on. To ensure no one is left behind, the Kenyan government launched EduAfya 3 years ago. The program has supported close to 3 million students to access affordable healthcare, thus fulfilling universal health coverage.
Future Stars, brought to you by Safaricom.
And I want to believe that I have set a good model to the upcoming athletes. I wish you all the best. Work hard, focus on what you are doing. And I want to believe that even you, one day, one time, you will make a history in the future. Yeah, thank you.
Here's a toast kutoka Hunter's Choice. Cheers to those who dare follow their dreams. Kwa wale watu who chase their goals, whatever it takes. Ni lazima uweke effort, bro. Through the late nights and heated moments. Ikikam kwa the game of life, Chief, you just have to own it. Hunter's Choice. Own your game.
We offer medical, health, hospitality, IT, business, fashion. Admissions are now open.
Win 25 million shillings on the easiest jackpot in Kenya for only 20 bob. Play the middle jackpot every week on betsafe.co.ke.
For a better tomorrow, don't forget to do the 1, 2, 3 with Colgate every night.
Here's a toast kutoka Hunter's Choice. Cheers to those who dare follow their dreams. Kwa wale watu who chase their goals, whatever it takes. Ni lazima uweke effort, bro. Through the late nights and heated moments. Ikikam kwa the game of life, Chief, you just have to own it. Hunter's Choice. Own your game.
Welcome to Kenya School of Medical Science and Technology, Thika. A place to change the course of your destiny. We offer medical, health, hospitality, IT, business, fashion. Admissions are now open.
NHIF will step in to increase affordability and access to quality health for you. So take the bold step and safeguard your families by enrolling to NHIF to ensure health for all. For more information, visit www.nhif.or.ke.
All right, welcome back. You're watching With All Due Respect, and we're discussing the question of the BBI and the Court of Appeal judgment and what exactly where it is leaving us. And the key question at the heart of this is, was the BBI process, the 74 proposed amendments, were they a dismemberment of the Constitution or were they amendment of the Constitution? Let me start with you, Dr. Ekuru Okot. You've criticized, BBI for a long period of time. From where you sit, was this a dismemberment, as the Court of Appeal and the High Court say, or it was amendment of our laws? Where do you sit on this?
James, let's be very frank. If you have to pass a law or amend a constitution or even write a new constitution, there has to be what we call the common good. What was the common good in BBI? There wasn't actually a common good. So if you look at the proposed amendments to BBI, it was more about overhauling the current constitution. And that's the reason why the judges were saying the basic structure must be met. So for me and any other observers, that the proposed amendments in BBI were not really about finding effectiveness in the constitution process, but it was more about personal interest. And I think that's why if you look at the 74 proposed amendments in BBI, it wasn't really about amendment, it's about rewriting a new constitution. And that, for me, is where the problem was.
All right, Professor Makau, for you, the very same question, because really at the heart of this question is how it all arose, the handshake, that brought about, as you correctly stated earlier on, President Uhuru Kenyatta and former Prime Minister Raila Odinga to try and find a common ground, political common ground. And the question is it possible that politics can agree and, as they did, and come up with all these solutions that they have those serious legal ramifications that exactly change the texture and the structure of our constitution?
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, I just want to say, first of all, that the language of dismemberment, that particular word, is very dramatic and somewhat hyperbolic. And so I want us to put that aside, first of all, and see this issue through the lens of the congruence that needs to exist between the Constitution and the people and the political class. There are two components here. What I call the zeitgeist, the people's consciousness of a country, resides, number one, in the political class, and number two, in the people themselves. But any constitutional framework of a country, for that framework to be legitimate, it must be grounded in that zeitgeist, in that people's consciousness, the consciousness of the people and what they want to do with their own state. as I said earlier, the problem in the early republic was that the people's consciousness and the political class were not in congruence with the 1963 Constitution, which was given to us at Lancaster. I like to think that the 2010 Constitution was a more legitimate document to Kenyans. However, I think any scholar and any serious thinker of constitutional law and Kenyan politics must ask themselves as to why this Constitution, the 2010 Constitution, has not worked as it was intended. Okay, and I can find places to lay blame. I can look at the executive and their disobedience of the rule of law, their rogue ways of governing. I can look at the corrupt and ravenous elite, but I can also look at the people of Kenya, the electorate. These are the same people who elected or elect these same rogues, these same thieves, who devour the Constitution. It means to me that there is incongruence between the people's zeitgeist, by which I mean the elite, but also the common person, the person we call Wanjiku, and the Constitution. And so that is why there's that disjunction. I mean, Dr. Okot correctly asked the question, why did we not implement the Dungu report? Why did we not implement the True Commission recommendations? Why have we not adhered to the basic tenets of the Constitution? And I say this, I say the problem is much, much deeper. And so that is why, from my own point of view, I would like us to have a constitution that is legitimate, that reflects the people themselves. And I think there are some things in the 2010 Constitution that do not capture what Kenyans really believe. You know, we are a very lofty document. It's a wonderful document, one of the most progressive documents in the world. But I think that document does not reside in the bosom, in the inner consciousness of Kenyans. There is a big gulf between the two. And I think the BBI process was one attempt, albeit badly done, and done improperly, and done without obeying the strictures of the Constitution, which the High Court said and which the Court of Appeal affirmed, that at some point, and I predict this with certainty, at some point we are going to have to look at that 2010 Constitution and make some amendments. Right.
Professor Migai, it is just picking up from Professor Makamutua. Here's the thing, and the judges made, they alluded to this. The question of changing the Constitution is essentially like a house, and give a good example of Justice Kiage, and speak about either decorating the house or you're demolishing a house. And in this respect, say when you demolish a house, it cannot be the same. You cannot pretend it to be the same. And the question of adding prime minister, deputy prime ministers, and whatever it is, just as an executive structure, that really is demolishing the house. It's not exactly what Kenyans voted for in 2010, isn't it?
On the contrary, I don't think that is demolishing the house.
What do you think?
That is institutional adaptation. And let me illustrate. We fight over the presidency. We've fought over the presidency every single election. And I think that is a premise upon which BBI was proceeding. So I think President Uhuru Kenyatta and Honorable Raila Odinga started on a very good note, saying that they want to prevent future generations from inheriting dangerous division. That cannot be a bad thing. And also, when we look at the contentions over the nature of the executive since the late 90s, it's always been the same. We've never agreed. In fact, this idea of a pure presidential system was a very shallow compromise at Naivasha in 2010. Mm-hmm. If you look at all the other constitutions, they have a hybrid system of government, not a pure presidential system of government. And here is why I have a problem with Musinga's take on this. Musinga says that the people opted for a pure presidential system, and that to replace it with a hybrid one interferes with the concept of separation of powers. Now, if you even ask a first-year law student, they'll tell you that the separation of powers doctrine is not absolute. It invites different kinds of institutional forms. So you have, if you're talking about the executive, you can have a parliamentary system, you can have a presidential system, you can have hybrid systems. All of those, you cannot tell anyone that they violate the separation of powers principle. But that is what the court is telling us.
That's I mean, James, can I say something? Can I jump in there for a minute, James?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. I just want to agree with Professor Kate there. You know, the idea of rejigging, or if you will, rearranging the chairs on the deck of the executive, cannot be a dismemberment. Because remember, the doctrine of separation of powers talks about the separation among the three branches, not within each branch, is among the three branches, so that any branch can reorganize itself, but to maintain the doctrine of separation of powers. You can have a parliamentary system, you can have a presidential system, you can have all kinds of systems that really, respect this doctrine. Now, I just want to say this here, that let us not forget that one of the contentious issues during the Bomas process, and I was a delegate there, by the way, was just the structure of the executive. And I think a lot of people there favored this idea of a hybrid system, quasi-parliamentary system with dashes of the presidential system there with the prime minister and even some deputy prime ministers.
Yeah.
I think we have to craft that system that works for us. Really, that is what we have to do.
All right, let me invite Dr. Kurokot, because you're part of the committee of experts, and you'll bring in a lot of institutional history here. The question on the executive and how the executive is structured, and whether we decide we are a pure presidential system or a hybrid system or a parliamentary system, and what Kenyans decide, at what point do Kenyans decide that? Is it, and when we decide it, are we changing our entire constitution? Are we changing the structure of the executive as is being argued tonight?
James, I'm sorry, but I can't hear anything you guys are saying.
Right. I'll get back to Dr. Kurokot and, to fix the sound. But so to the question and to the point of rearranging the executive or not, and it requiring, sort of a whole constitutional makeup, or just, it changing, the bits and pieces of it. And the question is, and someone asked this, what stops a president from being elected or inaugurated on election day and going to status and say, Kenyans wanted me to be a king, and change the structure of the executive in that sense? What stops that from happening if we say changing the executive is not, a big tinker of the constitution?
The constitution would, because you see, the separation of powers also is about avoiding the excess concentration of power in any one organ. So that would be an easy one to deal with. What I find extremely difficult to agree with is that simply changing from a pure presidential system, which by the way is not good for us, to a hybrid system fundamentally alters the nature of the constitution. That is just not honest. Right. In my perspective.
All right, Dr. Kuru, I don't know if you can hear us now. I wanted to invite your thoughts based on your expertise as the committee of experts and the historical and the institutional memory that you have on the question of whether Kenyans preferred a presidential system, a parliamentary system, or a hybrid system. And if you're going to change that, is that dismembering the constitution, or are we just doing a small amendment here and there to sort of change our structure on how we govern ourselves?
James, let me take you back to memory lane. When we were doing the 2010 Constitution, I don't know how many Kenyans can remember the harmonized draft of November 2009. In that 2009 Constitution, I think to what Professor Akechi Migai is speaking to, there was a proposal for a hybrid system. Parliamentary, pure presidential. It was in Naivasha when the politicians actually decided we don't want a hybrid system. People call it a mongrel, they call it all manner of names. So we went back to the people and I told the people, okay, what do you want? And the people said, We want a system where the president actually can have a say about government, about the constitution. So this question of hybrid or pure presidential system or winner takes it all is basically an argument that we already settled when we were writing the constitution. So I think that today what we should be talking about as Kenyans, now that we are looking into the anniversary of the new constitution on the 27th of August, this month actually, is how have we implemented it, both in terms of the letter and the spirit, okay? It's no longer about the arguments about pure presidential or hybrid. It's about implementing the letter and the spirit of the constitution. That really is what we should be talking about today. You know, for example, looking at this government,
yeah, James, I like Dr. Okot very much, but Dr. Okot, you know, I think let us agree that the 2010 Constitution is not perfect.
Prof, I can't hear. You are breaking up.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying to Dr. Okot, whom I like very much, that let us agree that the 2010 Constitution is not a perfect document. It was a political compromise, and we all know the compromises that took place. But let's also agree that the structure of the executive, because of Kenya's peculiar political matrix, must of necessity be a work in progress. And that is why there are so many changes made in Naivasha to that document. For example, we now have a president and a deputy president who cannot work together. And the president cannot do anything about it. Okay? That's a problem that at some point we're going to have to fix. Okay? Secondly, we now have a president who has designated one of his cabinet ministers as a kind of a chief minister. Okay? And there's nothing to stop that from happening. You see, if there was a prime minister, perhaps that could be stopped from happening because a prime minister would have defined duties and responsibilities. As it is, the deputy president does not have any defined responsibilities. He is simply known as a principal assistant to the president. So there are many issues that we need to fix in the executive. Let us not simply say that what we need to do, the only thing that we need to do is to implement that constitution. There are things that need to be changed, and that must be changed.
All right, and this brings me to...
I agree entirely.
This moves us to the political questions of things and where we live today. And let's just bring it home. As Professor Bakamutu quite states, the president and the deputy are currently in open warfare. There's open barbs. They're answering each other, in public. And like you said, the president cannot fire the deputy. The deputy cannot do anything, if he's not given any roles. Is that a constitutional defect? Should we fix that?
I think it is. I mean, we tend to forget that we're a young nation, and as with all young nations, we need to give room for institutional adaptation. So if an institution, and 10 years is a very short time, I mean, in the history of a constitution, obviously long enough for us to have seen what works and what doesn't. So I do not see why we should not go back to the drawing board and say, look, but this is not working for us. Let us change it. Constitutions are not cast in stone. Constitutions always have to maintain a balance between flexibility and rigidity. So my quarrel with what the courts are doing is that, yes, we've had a difficult past, but also we have a future. I mean, let us not be ruled by...
Prof, how would you answer someone who would say, this constitution, 10 years, it's not been given enough time to be implemented, right? How do you answer those? In
some respects, yes, but that can't go, it can't be the answer for everything. I think it has to be context dependent. You have to look at each and every institution. For example, we've seen the JSE working for 10 years. It is not accountable. It's not an accountable institution. So should we sit back and say, let us continue waiting, we give it time? When we very well know that it's not working, and the balance in terms of the composition of the JSC is not right. It has too many judges.
Right.
And yet these same judges are now telling us in their judgment that adding one individual will tilt the balance of power in the judiciary, in the Judicial Service Commission. I mean, where is the logic in that?
All right. Dr. Kurokot, how now goes to the politics, the political questions that we have to solve here. The Deputy President William Ruto and President Uhuru Kenyatta are currently not seeing eye to eye. They've been exchanging barbs on media. And the bigger question is, and it's either constitutional effect or not, that the president cannot fire his deputy. The deputy cannot do anything if he's not assigned roles by the government. So essentially, he just needs to sit there. Is that a constitutional defect? And politically, how do we fix that?
You know, first of all, that people who take up leadership of the country must understand the Constitution. That, you know, the presidency in Kenya today is the president and his deputy. So, in my honest view, I think it could be a personal difference between Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy, William Ruto, but that doesn't concern us as Kenyans. What should concern us as Kenyans is the fact that we elected a presidency, a president and his deputy. And what we expect from them is to implement and enforce this constitution. Period. That's all we want. Whatever differences they may have personally, you know, that's their problem. But as Kenyans, is the presidency working as per the constitution? Currently, it is not. And that for me is the bigger question.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, the presidency is a mongrel. It's a creature that really is an unfortunate introduction in the Kenyan Constitution, because we've seen that it is not working. It is like trying to put a square peg in a round hole. I think that is as clear as day and night. And I think, Dr. Okot, you'll be the first one to agree that if something is not working, and the design of the thing that is not working is the problem, the design has to be changed. Human nature being what it is. We cannot simply insist that they must work together when they cannot work together. We must have an escape hatch. We must have a way out. If these people cannot work together, one of them must go. And the one who must go clearly is the deputy. This has happened before in Kenya's history with Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, who left. If you look at other constitutional structures in other countries of the world, you will see that the deputy president or the vice president, you know, submits themselves to the president because he or she is a principal assistant. There's no two ways about it. And if the design of the Constitution is such that the number two person cannot submit themselves to the president, then they must be removed from office. And the Constitution must provide for ways to remove that person from office. That is just as clear as day. As you say, Dr. Okot, I agree with you. We have no time to waste, you know, with these two people fighting each other. We need services. We need them to govern. We need them to solve our problems. And so why should we stick with a system that is not working? Let's change it.
All right, Professor Pakawa, I'm going to ask now, as we went down the political question, straight question. What should Deputy President William Ruto do now and President Uhuru Kenyatta do? Their relationship is not working. What should they do?
I think, you know, there's an aphorism, a kind of a witticism, if you will, that says that, you know, there's no honor among thieves. You know, these two gentlemen, from what I understand, stole the election. Okay, perhaps not once, perhaps twice.
Yes.
But now they have fallen out. Okay, and what you are seeing in the fight between the two of them is that it's been a lack of honor. Okay, Mr. Ruto should do the honorable thing and resign office. You cannot simply squat in a public space, enjoy all the accoutrements and all the perks of public office, enjoy all the security, have access to all classified information, share that classified information with all manner of people. We don't know who he is sharing that classified information with, you know. And by the way, let me just say this. You know, the people of Kenya in 2010 did not agree to form a state which was a two-headed hydra. Okay? The state in Kenya today is a two-headed hydra. There is, on the one hand, the president, and on the other hand, the deputy president. Each one of them, if Kenyans do not know this, and they should know this, controls a very big chunk of the state. Mr. Ruto has access to state secrets. He knows what's going on as the deputy president. He has people who are loyal to him. He has governors who are loyal to him. He has MPs who are loyal to him. He has security officers who are loyal to him. I'm sure he had armed forces who are loyal to him. You cannot have a divided state like this. This question of the division between Mr. Kenyatta and Mr. Ruto is an existential threat to the security of Kenya. And one of them must go. And the one who must go is the deputy president, because he's a principal assistant. You cannot simply squat there and you insist on sitting there. Where is the honor here?
All right.
Mr. Ruto, please resign.
All right. With all due respect, Professor Bigai, for you, this is an open political warfare.
James, can I say one thing very quickly?
Yes, yes. You want to respond to this question? Please go ahead.
You know, first of all, tribal coalitions in Kenya cannot cure this country's problems. They actually heighten the problems in Kenya. And to be honest with you, I think we Kenyans need to be psychoanalyzed politically. How is it that today in Kenya we can talk of a failed Jubilee government, but in 2022 we are talking about the person to beat is Deputy President William Ruto? Look at all the problems that we are going through as a country. National debt at about 7 trillion Kenya shillings, meaning each one of us, including our children or even the unborn, actually owes somebody about 120,000 Kenya shillings. So why is it that we can think, politically speaking, we're talking about this country in the context of individuals? I think going forward, if you have to give meaning to our constitution, let's talk about alternative leadership in Kenya. And that's the only way we can move forward as a country.
Great. Prof, for you, open warfare, we have a problem. The deputy and the president cannot meet. I'm not even sure when the last time cabinet sat, but they're running government. What should happen?
As Professor Makomutua says, I think we have a problem there. I mean, the only way to resolve it is by getting rid of one.
Who? How does that happen?
That is a dilemma, because it requires somebody to do what Jaramogi Oginga Odinga did in 1966, to say, well, this is not working, let me, for the sake of my country, let me put my interests aside and let the country move forward.
So the deputy president said himself today that he's on the right, he's working for the common Wananchi, and he's not leaving office. Like,
so he's the president.
So the other party should resign then. So we are stuck with these barbs until 2022. Professor Makau,
yes.
How do we solve this problem?
No, I think, you know, I already said that there is no honor among thieves. And so I don't think that Mr. Ruto is going to resign, because if he resigns, he knows that he'll be very vulnerable. He won't have access to security, he won't have access to all the largesse of the state. You know, on whose dime do you think he's making all these trips and inviting all these people to come to his residence to wine and dine? I mean, he's doing so on the dime of the state, on taxpayer money. That is the money that he's using to do all of that. If he resigns, all that goes away. So my advice to you know, the executive and the legislature is that they should decide to impeach Mr. Ruto. Mr. Ruto should be impeached. You know, Kenya has to weigh which is a worse evil, which is you know, the more terrible problem. Is the more terrible problem allowing him to sit there, to divide the state, and to create what I'm calling an existential security threat for Kenya? Because now we don't know who is in charge. Mr. Ruto has one half of the state, Mr. Kenyatta has the other half. We do not know who has a bigger half or who has a more lethal half of the state. Perhaps Mr. Ruto controls the bigger half. This is very dangerous. So I think that what should happen is the man should be impeached. You know, because I don't think, Professor Kate, that Mr. Ruto is going to resign. The only solution here is for him to be impeached. Other people have said that he's a suspect in all kinds of scandals and you know, activities, some of them bearing a criminal nature. If that is the case, get him charged, you know, and tried, and let the courts rule. If he is guilty, he goes away. If he is not, he is set free. I think that you know, something has to happen. Mr. Kenyatta cannot simply sit in Mombasa or wherever he's sitting and simply assume that Mr. Ruto is going to go away. You know, he has to act. And I'm saying this with all seriousness. I have watched African countries, you know, collapse one step at a time. You know, we have watched countries around us collapse. You know, in the region, in East Africa and the Horn of Africa. There is nothing that says that Kenya cannot suffer the same fate. You know, and this is how a collapse starts. Look at South Sudan. Look at the conflict between Salva Kiir and Riek Machar. You know, those two guys cannot get along. Okay, what now separates Kenya from South Sudan? You know, as far as I can see, right. Mr. Kenyatta is like Salva Kiir, and Mr. Ruto is like Riek Machar. They are at loggerheads. You know, what is next? Now they are throwing verbal barbs at each other. What is going to happen next?
Yes.
Are they going to, you know, escalate this struggle to another level? We do not know what's going to happen here.
Let me bring in Dr. Kurokot. That we're trying to solve the political problem as we want. Yes.
I mean, I hear Professor Makau, but let me tell you one thing about our political leadership in Kenya in the context of constitutional implementation. You know, if there is one genius, the genius of Kenya's constitution was actually chapter 6, leadership and integrity. All these people in government today will never even honor chapter 6 because it's about their own personal interests. For example, if Deputy President William Ruto feels that he's being segregated and sidelined in government, why not resign? They will never resign because it's about their own personal preservation. And they're actually failing Kenyans in the context of chapter 6 on leadership and integrity. So the truth for the matter is this, that we have a leadership in Kenya today that does not even believe in the constitution itself. They only believe in their own personal interest. And that's why they keep on saying there aren't any permanent enemies or friends in politics. I think there should be permanent enemies or no friends in politics. Because if you are causing people heartache, if you are causing people harm, you are a bad person. And that's exactly what the law is all about. It's about regulation our human relations. So when they talk about this kind of, you know, no permanent enemies, no friends in leadership, it's just about their own personal preservation. What about just implementing the tenets of chapter 6? What character? You know, one of the things that Kenyans said, and you can look this up in a website called constitute.org. Kenya is the only country, arguably in the world, that has dedicated an entire chapter on what character and type of leaders that they want.
But we still don't.
We don't see that playing out in the political arena, and that's constitutional law.
Yes.
In Kenya.
Yes, Dr. Kuru, the chapter 6, the Integrity Act, the chapter, in all respects, is sort of like an inside joke between Kenyans and the draft of the constitution because no one really follows it.
Are those Kenyan values?
What are they?
Does chapter 6 embody Kenyan values? Do we practice them outside the political arena? Do we practice them?
We can aspire to them. Is it a mistake to aspire to something?
No, it's not a mistake to aspire to them. My quarrel is with the variance between the aspirations and practice. It is just so wide. And it is not just in the political domain.
All right.
So why should we be demanding integrity from politicians when in our day-to-day lives we don't have it?
That's a fair point.
But I think, Professor Ketch, you would agree with me that I don't disagree with you. I've talked about the wide gulf between, theory and practice in Kenya. But look, I think that Chapter 6 really should be the anchor of the 2010 Constitution and should have been the anchor of our constitutional dispensation. Okay? I think that, Parliament should have passed enabling laws to implement it. I think, the Court of Appeal and even the High Court in their BBI judgments should have really put down a stake on Chapter 6. And I agree with you, Professor Akech. Chapter 6 should apply to everyone, including to councillors, to common citizens, to private individuals, to companies, to everyone. It should be implemented. It's our salvation, really.
So I want to wind down, and I want to ask a political question now. BBI has fallen flat unless, it goes to the Supreme Court. Dr. Miguel Akech, would you advise for, this matter to rest here or go to the Supreme Court? I
think it should go to the Supreme Court so that the Supreme Court settles some of these issues with finality, particularly in terms of what amounts to just an amendment or a dismemberment. Because as I've demonstrated in the context of the executive, some of the judgments from the Court of Appeal are not persuasive. Even to a first-year law student, I don't think they will be persuaded. So on that, and then for me, the four-step process by which the court claims that is the only way to amend the Constitution is problematic. And I would ask you, if we remember what happened with the process of getting the 2010 Constitution.
Yeah.
It took us 3 or 4 years just to agree on what a Constituent Assembly would be. And even then, after that, a court then said that, but this is not a Constituent Assembly because the majority of its members are not elected. That is the body that gave us the Constitution. And so how long is it going to take every time we want to amend the Constitution? How long is it going to take us to agree on a Constituent Assembly? How do we constitute it? Who will be its members? How much time will it take to do its work? Who will meet the exorbitant costs of the amendment processes?
Wanjiku.
Those are questions. Where does Wanjiku get that money? So we need the court of the Supreme Court to settle some of those questions.
Right.
Because they're practical. For me, they're practical questions that need answers. And both the two courts, I think, do not address those practical questions.
Right. Dr. Kura, court for you. Should this matter rest here, or would advise it to go to the Supreme Court so that some of these things can be addressed in finality, as Professor Miguel Akech says? Where do you stand on this?
Well, for me, to be honest, looking at the context of Kenya today and the problems Kenyans are going through, BBI is not a priority for Kenyans right now. I think I will advise the people who want to go to the Supreme Court, rest this issue. Let's have a sober conversation maybe after the 2022 election. And if we really must amend the Constitution of Kenya, let's look at what is the common good by amending this Constitution. I would rather they actually talk about how do we punguza mizigo for Kenyans than this BBI that is ongeza mizigo for Kenyans. Really, I would suggest to them, let's not polarize the country anymore. After all, BBI started on a very wrong start. They lied to Kenyans that we are trying to establish what ails this country. And we said there are many things that have been, many decisions have been made about what is the problem with Kenya. So really, if we must talk about constitution-making process, let's talk about how do we benefit Kenyans, period. It's not about political, it's not about advancing tribal leadership in this country. That's not what Kenyans want. But even then, going towards 2022 election today, I think the political leadership in this country need to be very responsible. They need to be very careful about how they move a certain agenda that has the potential of actually engendering tribal divisions in Kenya. So I think they should actually drop the idea of going to the Supreme Court.
All right, drop the idea of going to the Supreme Court. Professor Makamutua, for you, and Christobal, I'm being asked on Twitter to ask you with clarity and finality, who's going to win the 2022 presidential election? As you answer that question, should we go to the Supreme Court or not?
Right. So I hear what Professor Akech is saying about the need for the Supreme Court to answer with finality some of the novel legal questions and constitutional issues that were raised both by the judgments of the High Court, but also the Court of Appeal in particular. But let me just say that there are two problems with this. In as much as I am tickled by the possibility of the settlement of those questions, there are two problems. The first one is that, Professor Akech, you and I know very well that the Supreme Court of Kenya does not have a legal brain power to make those determinations as it is currently constituted.
Please be kind to the Supreme Court.
It just does not have this. You know, the High Court that was presided over by John Ngugi is by a magnitude of 10, much better than the Supreme Court. The Court of Appeal, which was led by Justice Musinga, is also a better court than the Supreme Court. So my view is that if you are looking at the Supreme Court to settle these issues for you, you'll be disappointed. The legal brain power is not there. Number one. Number two, the clock has run out of any legal process that should be carried out. And my own advice to Professor Akech and to others who might want to pursue some of the questions in the BBI document is to wait until after the elections of 2022. And as Dr. Okot, properly and correctly argues, let us sit down as a country and deliberate about how and where to tweak our constitution, not to fundamentally change it, but to tweak it. There are some things that should be changed. I believe that the executive ought to be changed. I think that, the county should get 35% of the revenues. I think that the JSC should be looked at again, not to introduce an ombudsman. That's a bad idea. But to make it more accountable and less opaque. I don't think that, for example, the 73 constituencies or 70 constituencies that were proposed for the BBI,
yes,
were going to fly. Bad idea. But we have no time to now prepare for the elections and, continue litigating these legal questions.
Right.
Let us wait until after the elections and then go from there. As to who's going to win the election next year,
yes,
I think you're going to have to invite me next week to come and tell you
that. With all due respect, Professor Makau Mutua, all the way in New York, thank you very much. Thank you for making time. Dr. Ekuru Okot, thank you very much as well for making time and your very valuable thoughts. And with all due respect, Miguel Akech, please drop this. Let it rest. Let's go to election.
It's not about me.
For people like you.
But I hear Professor Makau. What he says makes a lot of sense.
All right. That's all we have time for. I don't know if you can see some of the responses that we've had tonight on the show. It's been a lot. All right. So the spat between His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta and Deputy President William Ruto makes us wonder, how can a constitution that is said to be so sound allow leadership gaps as this to continue? Ours is a young nation whose peaceful existence is threatened by quote-unquote constitutional entrenched egos. Crispus Wadimba. With all due respect, Meru Governor Kiraitu Burungi says the Council of Governors are disappointed with the Court of Appeal for throwing the good things about BBI with the bathwater. He says you better believe him when he says BBI was good for devolution because he went to Alliance and Harvard. What a better way to end it. He went to Alliance and Harvard. With all due respect, thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you very much. We'll do this all over again, as we always do, on Tuesday on this station. We'll discuss important issues, panel issues, as you have had. Thank you very much to my guests, Professor Miguel Akech, Dr. Ekuru Okot, and Professor Makau Mutua, all the way from New York. Have a lovely night, everyone. My name is James Watt.